Alright, so today we're going to be talking about supply. If consumers have demand, then producers have supply. And you have it, and for the right price you will sell it, you will sell your supply. Supply refers to the various quantities of a good or service that producers are willing to sell at all possible market prices. And demand can be sort of easy to understand because we are all consumers, we're all buying stuff. Supply is a little more difficult. You have to put on the hat of someone who's running a business and think about, what would make you decide to sell something in terms of price. So supply can refer to the output of one producer or to the total output of all producers in the market. It can be an individual company's supply of a good or service or all companies as a whole in terms of that good or service. A supply schedule is a table that shows the quantities producers are willing to supply at various prices. So similar to the demand schedule, we've got prices in the left-hand column on the table, and we've got quantities supplied of widgets on the right-hand side. This time we see when the price is high, we have a large number being supplied. When the price is low, we have a low number being supplied. This can also be shown as points on a graph. The graph will have prices on the vertical axis and quantities supplied on the horizontal axis. Each point on the graph shows how many units of the product or service each producer or group of producers would sell at that particular price. The supply curve is the line that connects these points on the graph. Does this seem familiar? It should. It's pretty much the same. It is the same as demand, other than the fact that our numbers are going to be reversed because a producer, someone selling a good, is going to sell more of it at a high price and less at a low price. Conversely, with demand, you'll purchase more at a low price and less at a high price. And this is where this interaction between supply and demand take place. So the supply curve for widgets based on the supply schedule right here would look like such. At $1, a very small number of them are going to be supplied. At $5, a larger amount of them are going to be supplied. That makes the supply curve go up. As the price of a good rises, quantity supplied rises. As the price falls, quantity supplied falls. So while it was an inverse relationship with demand, price goes up, demand goes down. This time it's a relationship. Price goes up, quantity supplied goes up, price goes down, quantity supplied will go down. The law of supply holds that producers will normally offer more for sale at higher prices and less at lower prices. And what I've circled right here is up. Supply goes up. Up is directly in the word. Demand goes down. The graph, the supply curve will go the opposite direction. Demand starts with the D, so does down. The supply has up right in the word. That supply curve will always go up. You're going to sell more at high prices. That's why the curve slopes up. One reason that the supply curve slopes upward is due to costs and profit. All right, and this is what will help us understand. Whereas a consumer, we know we want the lowest price possible. That's why we'll buy more of something at a low price. A producer has a different thought model. They have to consider the cost of what they're producing and hopefully the ability to turn a profit after they sell their particular item. So because producers are purchasing those inputs, the factors of production, purchasing resources and trying to use them to make output, they're going to incur costs because the inputs they need are the same inputs that other businesses need, whether it's land, whether it is capital, whether it is entrepreneurship. They're going to have costs. They have to bid those resources away from other businesses. They experience cost in doing that, and they need to make a profit. Businesses do this not out of the goodness of their own hearts. McDonald's isn't providing hamburgers because they want to fulfill your hunger. They're doing it because they want to make a profit. The money they have left over after they cover the costs for the food, after they cover the costs for their labor and all the equipment that they put in to their restaurant. Businesses try to sell at prices high enough to cover their costs with some profit left over. The higher a price for a good, the more profit they're going to make. Therefore, if prices are high, they're going to supply a lot of their good. If prices are low, they will supply a very small amount, if any at all, if they're not able to cover their costs in the process and in turn make a profit. So if there's a change in the price, okay, the price of an item changes. At $3 per widget, we can see quantity supplied of widgets is $6. These lines mark up with $3. and 6 widgets supplied. If the price of widgets fell to $2, 20 supplied would fall to $4. So price goes down to $2, 20 supplied will drop to $4. That's a simple price change. And just like with a price change in demand, you're seeing movement along the supply curve. You go up or down depending on changes in the price. However, supply curves can also shift, just like the demand curve can shift to the left or shift to the right based on those biter factors we talked about. Supply curves can also shift, and they have a different group of factors that are going to affect whether there is an increase or decrease in the supply of a particular item. The first one are subsidies and taxes. Government subsidies encourage production, while taxes discourage production. So if the government puts a tax on cigarettes, and that means producers, for every one pack of cigarettes they produce, they've got to pay the government a 20-cent tax. Well, that's 20 less cents they can spend on the factors of production to make their cigarettes, so they're going to supply less of them. Subsidies, on the other hand, encourage production. So if the government is going to pay a producer, say, 20 cents a bushel to produce corn, they're going to produce more corn, and that will increase supply because they're getting paid, basically subsidized, which means they're getting extra money to produce a particular item, which will of course increase the supply of that item. The next factor is technology. Improvements in production increase the ability of firms to supply. Now remember back to the last unit, we learned about division of labor and assembly line and specialization and automation. Okay, those technologies come along, and all of a sudden businesses can produce more for the same cost. And as a result, they are producing more and more. That increases supply. New technologies increase the ability to produce things. There's more supply on the market. Other goods. Businesses also consider the price of goods they could be producing. All right, if you are running a factory and you have workers working around the clock, and your factory could be making cars, or your factory could be making hybrid cars. All right, you have to consider the price of both of those goods. If there's all of a sudden a big spike in oil prices and demand for hybrid cars goes through the roof, you're going to start producing hybrid cars, and that means you are not producing regular automobiles. And remember, opportunity cost, you have to consider the cost of what you're giving up. If you can sell more hybrid cars, you're going to have to make the switch, and that will, of course, increase the supply of the item you choose to make and then decrease the supply of the other item you choose not to make. So other goods can affect these things. Number of sellers, how many firms are in the market? If we have a monopoly situation where there's only one producer, that producer does not necessarily have a reason to oversupply the market. They provide enough to keep prices where they want to be. So if there are a number of sellers in the market, silly bands has happened. There was no barrier to entry to making silly bands. Dozens of companies showed up once that fad took off, and then all of a sudden there were silly bands everywhere. There was a huge change in supply because of the number of people supplying that particular product. Expectations. Businesses consider future prices and economic conditions when determining how much to supply. If they see forecasts saying that there's going to be a recession, it might change how many refrigerators they make or how many cars they produce, because they don't want to have leftover cars because nobody is purchasing them a refrigerator, so they will draw back their supply. If they think there's going to be a strong economic conditions, or if they see, the grocery stores do this, the same with expectations for consumers. When there's a storm coming in, they put out the items, they oversupply the items that people are going to need to meet the demand for those things. So expectations of what will happen. Resource costs. Cost to purchase the factors of production will influence business decisions. If one of your factors all of a sudden spike, the price of labor goes up, the price of one of the natural resources you need to produce your item, that could cause you to make less and supply less if you cannot afford to purchase enough of the resource you need for production. So these are stoner, the factors that shift the supply curve. So what does the supply curve do? How does it shift? Well, changes in any of the factors other than price will cause the supply curve to shift. A decrease in supply will shift it to the left, and an increase in supply will shift it to the right. So it's the same as demand from the standpoint of a decrease in demand sends us left, and an increase in demand sends us to the right. That's easy to remember. It's just that the original curve is sloping in a different direction. So here's the supply curve for widgets. It's going up. Um, let's say that there's an improvement in the technology used to produce widgets, right? They can now produce more of them. That's going to increase supply of widgets, and the supply curve for widgets will shift to the right. That means that every single price, $1, $2, $3, there are now more widgets being supplied because of this increase in technology. They're able to produce more of them. There's been an increase in supply. Now, it can also decrease due to factors other than a change in price. Let's say that a large number of widget producers go out of business. All of a sudden there's only one factory making widgets. Well, there's not going to be as many widgets on the market. Supply is going to decrease. It will shift to the left at every single price. At $1, $2, $3, the number of widgets being provided has decreased all the way down to at $1. Now there are no widgets offered for sale. At $2, there are only 2 widgets as opposed to 4 before because of the decrease in price. Alright, so that is supply. Very similar to demand. Just remember, the supply curve shifts up or slopes up. The demand curve slopes down, and the increase and decrease factors are different, but an increase does cause a shift to the right for both demand and supply, and a decrease causes a shift to the left for both demand and supply. Now, in the next video, we'll start putting supply and demand together, and we'll see how prices are actually determined once consumers with their demand and producers with their supply begin interacting.